In this relatively short video, I'm going to teach you more or less all of the clarinet fingerings that you'll ever need and which ones are the best and which ones you should be using.
My name is Josh Gu, and I'm taking my years of experience learning, teaching, and performing, and sharing all of my best clarinet and music tips so you can get more out of your practice, and most importantly, have fun. You can learn more about all of my many resources at quickstartclarinet.com, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell to get notified when I post new videos.
Now, there were a few qualifiers in the beginning of this video because I'm not actually going to go through every single fingering and show you all of them. I'm sort of taking the approach of that idea of give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime idea. I'm going to teach you how to fish, teach you how to figure out the fingerings of the clarinet, and I'm going to give you my favorite fingering chart for looking at all of the fingerings and figuring them out. And more importantly than just giving you the fingering chart or just giving you a few fingerings, I'm going to teach you how to read the fingering chart so that you can actually figure out all of those fingerings and know which ones are the best, because sometimes in the fingering chart there's multiple options to choose from. So let's start with figuring out how to read the fingering chart. So let's start by looking at this fingering for G sharp or A flat, which very well may be a note that you've never played before. So we're going to need to look at the fingering chart to figure out how to play it. You'll notice that the fingering chart looks an awful lot like the clarinet, with the thing on the left being this backside with the thumb hole and the register key, and then the 3 holes on the left hand, 3 holes on the right hand, and then we have kind of these pinky key shapes at the bottom. So with this fingering, what it's showing is the solid colored ones are ones that we cover and put our fingers on. The open ones are ones that we don't. So starting with the thumb and register key, we have our thumb covering the hole. The register key is not being pressed. And then we have all 6 fingers, 1, 2, 3 on the left, 1, 2, 3 on the right, covering the holes. And then when we look at the pinky keys, you can see how the shape of the pinky keys is reminiscent with the picture. And it's this one closest, this kind of upper one, closest to the other fingers. That's the one that's shaded in. So that's the key that we press. And that's how you finger a low G sharp or an A flat. Now looking at this other fingering for B or C flat, you'll notice that there's a couple options, and this is where the fingering chart can get a little bit tricky because it gives you options and then you have to decide in which situation which fingering should I use. But let's start by how to read this one, because there's also an interesting point in reading this one. The first option is pretty straightforward. Again, the thumb hole is covered but not the register key, so we don't press the register key. We have 1, 2, 3 on the left hand, and then just the second finger on the right hand. So the first hole is open, the third hole is open, and we have just the middle finger down. That's straightforward for how to read that. You'll notice on the other option for it though, we have the same left hand, thumb, no register, 3 fingers. Then we have the first finger, and then we have this little sort of horizontal line. What is that? How is that working? Well, again, if we look at the clarinet and we look at the fingers, we have hole, 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 and you notice that horizontal line is between the second hole and third hole, and that horizontal line actually exists on the clarinet. You see there's this little key here. So in this case, it's the same left hand, first finger, and then with the ring finger, we're going to press this sliver key. It might be tempting to press this with the middle finger. Don't do that. Press it with the ring finger for this sliver key. Same thing goes when we look at D sharp or E flat. The second option on that one also has a sliver key, which you can also see on the clarinet that we press with the ring finger. So those little sliver keys on both hands are with the ring fingers. That can be a nifty little trick to know. While we're talking about nifty little tricks for sort of the different fingerings and which fingers to actually press them with and how to press them, there's a few other nuances. Continuing to look at that D sharp and E flat, with the first option, you have thumb and register, 1 and 2 on the left hand, and then you have the side keys. And again, we can see those 4 little button side keys in the picture align with these 4 side keys on the clarinet. And in this case, we're going to press the bottom one. But unlike the other keys where we press them with our fingertips, we're not going to press this with the fingertip like this. That would be weird and make it really hard to get to this hole if we needed to. So instead, we keep the fingers in their neutral position over the holes and then press with the kind of knuckle, using just this first finger to press it, not using the whole hand, not coming around with the tip of the finger, by just pressing it with kind of the side of the knuckle to hit that side key. Same thing goes for all of these side keys, is we pretty much want to hit them with just this first finger when those come up in different fingerings. Another one that's a kind of first finger important is G sharp and A. Those are these two keys up here. Same thing applies. We want to keep the fingers tips over the holes and then press with kind of the side of the finger for G sharp and kind of the first knuckle of the first finger for the A, so that we're keeping the finger in position over the hole and can press the A key or the G sharp key while more or less keeping that finger very, very close to the hole. So that's how to read a fingering chart so you can figure out every single fingering on the instrument. I'm going to put the fingering chart that I was showing on screen into my free members area, and I'm going to put some very helpful markings on it for you. I'm going to circle the sort of most common first choice when there's multiple fingering options for a note, so those are the ones that you should learn as the default. I'm also going to put a star next to some of them that are the chromatic fingerings to show when you should use a different fingering for the chromatic scale versus the default fingerings. Speaking of the chromatic scale, that is the #1 best thing that you can be doing to learn all of the notes on the instrument and get comfortable and familiar with the fingerings of the instrument, is to learn your chromatic scale. So the chromatic scale plays through every single note, which is why it's so helpful. So you don't even need the music written out, though you can easily find that. But you can take this fingering chart and go one note at a time and use either the circled note or the starred fingering. If there's a circle and a star, use the starred fingering for the chromatic scale. If there's just a circle, then use the circled fingering, because the most common fingering and the chromatic fingering are the same. Real quickly, why there's different fingerings in the chromatic scale. One is because the motion of the chromatic scale, it makes some of those fingerings a little bit easier. And two is it's helpful to be aware of these different alternate fingerings, because in different situations, those alternate fingerings may be more helpful or less helpful depending on sort of what the context of the notes are around it. So it's good to be familiar with all of the alternate fingerings so you can plug them in the different situations that you might need to use them. So go to quickstartclarinet.com/getstarted, where you can download this fingering chart in my free members area with the circles and with the stars. Start practicing your chromatic scale so that you can know all of the fingerings and get used to them. And the last little disclaimer I have, this fingering chart only goes up to high F. That's probably higher than you need right now to just get learning. In fact, as you're learning it, just go a few notes at a time as you're learning the chromatic scale. You don't have to get through the whole page. In fact, you'll learn better if you take maybe 3 to 5 notes at a time. But don't worry about going higher than F for now. There are notes higher than F, but that's where you start to get into like 19 different fingering choices for one note, and it gets more complicated and more advanced. For now, just stick with that fingering chart. That will get you up to high F, which is pretty much as high as you'll need through high school, depending on the level of music that you're playing in high school. So that should keep you tied over for quite a while. If you have any questions about how to read a fingering chart, how to finger notes on the instrument, let me know in the comments below. Go to quickstartclarinet.com/getstarted to get a bunch of awesome free resources to help on your clarinet music journey, including this fingering chart with the first choice fingering circled, the proper chromatic fingering starred. And thank you so much for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you in another one. And last but not least, a huge heartfelt thank you to the Dennersons. This is like the Quick Start Clarinet family who supports the channel and helps to make everything that I do possible. If you would like to support the channel and get some awesome rewards in return, where we can work one-on-one over video and you can have my full support moving forward on your clarinet journey, then go to quickstartclarinet.com/supporter.